It is my great pleasure to introduce you with the latest technology available to measure the effectiveness and the reputation of countries, regions, and cities. It is my great pleasure to announce at City Nation Place the release of a software and a technology that has never been used so far. This technology is now available and can be used by everyone, and the name of this technology is called Google. If you want to know how you're dealing in terms of perception, how you're dealing in terms of reputation, if you want to assess your brand, if you want to see if your policies are working on, try typing in the name of your country, your region, your city, and what shows up in the first 3 pages of Google is the blunt truth about your brand. That's it. As simple as that. Now, you make no mistake. I mean, 70% of tourists search before they decide where to go. Not where to book, but where should I go? The first step they do is they search. Investors, 40% approximately of investors, assess their investment destination using the search engine, regardless which search engine it is. So, the question you have to ask yourselves is, are they searching at all? That's the first question. And the second thing is, what are they searching? And what they find, will it change the willingness to invest, to live, to work, and so on? The search is something that can happen because of many reasons. I mean, it's not really the cause. The cause is because of social network. It is because something they read on a post. It's something that it was digital. It has nothing to do with digital. It can be over a conversation in dinner. It could be on a conversation over a cafe, something they heard. I mean, forget when we say about the search that it's a digital thing. It is not. It could be triggered by something, or even an article they read on the newspaper, something they saw on TV. It doesn't matter. The cause, in the end, creates the consequence, and the consequence is the search. I mean, think about it. Global stakeholders, like people really searching about your destination, about your place, about your country. I mean, someone really proactively going like, what's going on in Sweden, or Sweden investment, or Luxembourg, or Costa Rica, or Brazil. The proactive approach really is a great indicator if you're doing well or not. The search, the ultimate KPI that really uses and can be used as a metric system to understand how you're doing. So that's why we create the Digital Country Index. Right now, it's available. It's called digitalcountryindex.com. It's available today. We launched it today, the 2nd edition. And basically what this index does is analyze what 5 groups of stakeholders, which is business people, not necessarily interested in investing, foreign direct investors, tourists that maybe want to visit, workforce, like people that want to work, live, and study in a specific place, and of course prominence, where we call them the general citizens, which is people not necessarily interested in anything, but just curious about. Maybe they become the others. So what we did was we grouped all these stakeholders in 5 dimensions. We call them 5 dimensions. Please remember these 5 dimensions because I'm going to talk about them. And the 5 dimensions are exports, investments, tourism, talent, and prominence. Prominence is the aspect of public diplomacy. Now, the way we gather this information is through a technology called digital demand. I mean, what's behind the index is a technology called digital demand. Digital demand is a technology, is a software that captures and quantifies the absolute number of searches that are being done and performed by everyone worldwide about any country, region, or city. We have this big data. The absolute number. It's not a sample, it's like every search that is being done about anyone. And instead of me start talking about the positions of the country, like, oh, this went up or down, I would like to talk to you about why they went up or down. I'm going to talk about how the policies that you have been implementing, either from a reactive or proactive point of view, how they changed the desire of the interest of someone about a specific country. I mean, by the way, if you think you can do this with Google Trends and that technology, good luck. You know? If you can do that, I'll buy you dinner. On me. I mean, so you can check the online, the digitalcountryindex.com online, whenever you want to see the positions. I'm just going to talk about, here's the top 20. I'll just talk about some highlights of some countries And I'm going to talk about the dimensions I mentioned. So someone from talent, from investments, from tourism, just highlights, because the detail is on the lunch session. Okay? So I can only talk about the highlights. Yeah? If I have to talk about information, I have to talk about America. I have to talk about the USA, dropped one position, the #1 loser. And if I talk about America, I have to talk about Donald Trump. And what was the Trump effect in brand USA? What you see here is one brand tag. We call them brand tags. I'm sorry for being so technical. But you see here is one brand tag inside dimension. The dimension is talent, but so the brand tag is the topic. So what people are searching related to talent. So relocation and any type of search related with relocation, like where to live, how to move, etc., is under this. We call them brand tag. It's a cluster of information. So what you see here is the timeline over the last 2 years of how the world is interested to live in the United States, to relocate to the United States, the world. And what you see in this trend line is every time, not just because of that, but every time Donald Trump went a step closer to the presidency, there was a direct decrease of interest in terms of relocating and living in the US. I don't have the data from yesterday. I'm very sorry, but that is going to change dramatically as well. But while this happened, in Canada, the global appeal increased tremendously. Yeah? So what you see in pink is the Canada, and what you see in white is the US. And of course, it's not just because of Trump. It's because Canada, you know, with its prime minister, with its policies and its brand, is seen as the desired place to live and to work. That's why Canada is the #1 country in our index, the most desired country to relocate and to live in the world. With a little help from our friends, right? But still, it is a consequence. And what's interesting to see this about these peaks is like it's a trend. Is to see like what is the sentiment, what is this telling us? So Canada is going to go up and up and up, and the US is going to go down and down and down. But now I'm talking about the world. What about the US interested in relocating to Canada? And what's interesting about this index and the data we're showing about the digital country index is the digital demand. So we're looking at digital demand data behind the index. Is the KPI on your left. I'm giving you the absolute number of searches. So it's not an average, it's the total number of searches. Yeah? So the US Americans are really interested in relocating to Canada. Actually, Canada immigration website portal crashed yesterday. It's true story. Huh? But still, I mean, these peaks are interesting, but you have to take them with a grain of salt. It's all like 5%. Now I'm sure it increased a little bit. But this is how America wants to go to Canada, and don't get me started with Mexico. Okay? So what you see here is in Canada, the Mexicans interested in living in Canada, and again, not just because of Trump, but also because of the great policies that Canada has been implementing. And again, it's going to be the #1 place for this part of the world. Continuing in prominence, when I talk about prominence, how does terror affect the willingness to live and to work? Still on the dimension of, but now I'm going to focus on interested in working in Paris. Of course, terrorism has a dramatic impact on people. I don't want to go there. But is it something that is just a peak? Is it something that people were just afraid of something and then nothing happens, everything goes down to normal? And the answer is no. Every time there was a terrorist attack, Paris and the brand France was directly, it had a direct hit. And this constant pushing downwards the brand and what the uncertainty about the brand and living and working in France or in Paris has a negative trend. So what France needs to do with this, or Paris needs to do with this, it's another conversation. I'm sorry, I'm not pessimistic, I'm not dark, okay? But moving from terror to war, what is the impact of branding? What is the impact of how does this change? What is the behavior behind this? And why am I showing this? Because Syria was one of the countries that went up in the index, and they were showing going up. Why this happened? I mean, we were looking at the brand tags, now we're looking at prominence, diplomacy. And you see, of course, leaders, war, crime, it went up. But again, these are negative searches. And the negative searches pushes the countries down. So if I have a lot of searches about corruption or about crime, the country goes down. But Syria went up. And why did it went up? I had absolutely no idea. Until I opened the digital demand and I started looking into the data. And in the tourism dimension, this is something I've been working for this for the last 15 years. Not this specifically, but I mean place brand and so on. Tourism went up. People are interested in visiting Syria. Good. Now I understand a couple of things more. And that is why I think it's always important when we look at this, is like not to have our interpretation, but really look at the data and then take the conclusions away from what happened. So in the heat of the moment, when things were going down, there was a demand for tourism and an interest for tourism for Syria. Now, I've been talking about all these things, which is things that just happen and you have to deal with them. What about the policies? What about the strategies that you have been implementing? Do they pay off? Are they good? Are they working? Are they generating the desired appeal? Let's talk about the Olympics. Let's talk about Rio. Let's talk about what was the impact. There's always this conversation, should I have the Olympics or not? What about the bad things that happen? And let me tell you, I mean, you can have the Olympics, you can have something that is great, goes well, but when you have people rebelling on the street, when you have impeachment, when you have corruption, when you have poverty, all the spotlight goes there. And this was all over the news. And this impacted dramatically the brand on a negative side. Did it impact negatively? Okay, I have to show you this graph like this. So just bear with me, okay? So I'm in the dimension of prominence, public diplomacy, and this is corruption. Corruption searches for Brazil. And what you see here on the left is the metric, so it's the search. You can see that, you know, whenever this was the World Cup, this is the Olympics here, this is when the Secretary of Finance was arrested, this is when almost Lula was arrested, and you see that, oh, the global searches towards Brazil, right? And I see here peaks. Okay, so this is not helping me, the events that I've been working so hard. Okay, I add a new brand tag, so I have corruption. Now, keep an eye on the left, keep an eye on the left. I go into crime, right? So here you go, we're now in 30,000. Okay, big protests on the street, Brazil, everybody, wow, we don't need to spend money on World Cup, etc., etc. Then this is the story about the swimmer that was robbed. After all, he was not robbed. Again, crime. Now, keep an eye on the left, and then boom, I go to poverty and I see like, wow, nearly 60,000 searches just in 1 month. And I go and I see all these brand tags and like the bad will this has, and this was thanks to the policies I was trying to implement, right? Now, check this out. I put a positive brand tag here called arts. Yeah? Now, keep an eye on the left. And arts is pink. Boom. So when you see these were the negative brand tags, and check this out, I mean, arts, just because you were working around it and because the world is looking at you from a different perspective, this was something we'd never figure out could possibly happen. But like, all the negative searches don't even, I mean, the positive searches double all the negative searches together, right? So this is what's interesting when we analyze the data, and so that you can analyze and see why the countries went down or up, and why are people searching and why. And then sometimes, like, I didn't do anything about art, but look at this. It was something that really happened and triggered, and that's what we're trying to measure. And the good policies and the good things that you have been doing as a country, like, for instance, Cuba, the elimination of HIV transmission from mother to child, this had a direct hit in tourism, a direct hit in tourism. Because of this great news, tourists, and from the tourism dimension, you start to increase more and more and more. And when I look into the policies that the US have been doing in the past, let's see if they continue, then you can see as well that the interest and the trend towards Cuba is going to increase and increase. Half of these searches are American, so it's from the US, but still, it is the brand metric that you can analyze and see over time. Last example I want to give is Costa Rica. So Costa Rica created a policy, of course, because they could, to run the country on 75 days on renewable energy only. Now, did this pay off? Was this interesting? Was this something that the world was interested about? And look at the trends here. So this is when they launched the initiative. And this is all the searches that I have. But again, this is like, oh, this was like just this quick news on something. No, there was a legacy. As you can see, like the world starts seeing Costa Rica as more renewable, sustainable, and you can measure the metric about that. And now they're running a new campaign. We're going to talk about this in the lunch session, and how this is still this legacy and how they impact in terms of branding, right? So in the end, what we want to show is, and to talk about, is the new frontier in terms of place branding, reputation, which is how your place brand, how your country, how your region, how your city has a new area to work on, and that not many countries are working on. It's like, how the hell do I put myself in Google and in the way that when people search for me, what they find is really what I'm working on, and I can make them actually, wanting to them to actually search for the country. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, again, very interesting talk with lots of potential issues to talk about, to discuss. So let's go with the question we've got on the screen there. Yeah. So could you maybe say something about the
There's
age
no
groups?
differentiation so far in age group. We cannot segment yet. So it's literally, it's the world. What we can segment, though, is who is searching. I mean, what is the interest that they have in that specific country, in that specific region, in that specific destination, let's put it this way. So I know if it's an international tourist, I know if it's a business person, I know if it's a foreign direct investor, but I'm not yet able to see what it is. And when we talk about the search as a KPI, is not just the Google effect, but also other search engines. I mean, it's the act of searching. That's what we're trying to go after, and even other search engines that are not related but searching in Facebook, searching in Twitter. So all these kinds of things, like this proactive interest, is something that we are more and more advancing and getting this big data.
Yeah. I think it's really, really fascinating, the fact that this is not just a sample, this is everything.
Yes, yes.
I mean, what inspired you to do that? Did you see a particular need for?
Well,
this?
To be honest with you, it happened by accident. We were, as you know, we develop the country brand ranking every year, and one of the metrics we use is this. And we were talking with some of the stakeholders, and they start asking, like, can you analyze this? Can I just have this bit of information? And we said, sure. And then we start to research further and further to see really what was the behavior of the stakeholders. And we thought it was really important. We start to see that everyone Googles the destination, the place. And so that's when actually it happened, and this is 5 years ago. And this is when we start processing and working on the technology to have it and analyze it all over the world.
Yep. Okay, thanks very much. Again, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the time for this presentation, but I'd just like to thank again Jose Torres. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.